Hi everyone, it's Hasi from Port Matthews Metro and Team Conveyancing. This morning I'm with one of the most important cogs in a real estate transaction, that is the role of a settlement agent. And we got one of the best in the game, Leanne Hyde from Conveyancing HQ. Thank you, Leanne, for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Hasi.
Leanne, I've known you for a very, very long time. You're one of the best in the game.
Thank you.
And you are connected to us. We should disclose as well.
Yes, we are.
Leanne, so brief introduction about yourself, how long you've been doing this for?
So I started settlements in 1996, did my license to have my triennial in 2002, opened Conveyancing HQ January 2008, and became a member of the Australian Institute of Conveyancers the day I opened.
And everybody knows you in the game as well, right?
Most people do, yes. Yeah. They all comment on the hair.
Your hair's always been very vibrant. So, Leanne, tell us, can you explain the settlement agent's process, right? So we got a lot of first-time buyers coming onto the market, especially from overseas as well, you find?
Yes.
And a lot of the overseas buyers that are buying their home for the first time in Perth, or Australia for that matter, they don't know what a settlement agent is and what they do.
No. So our role, we will get the contract once you've written it with Hasi or your real estate agent. We will look through that, follow up your conditions. You'll have many conditions on your contract, mainly your termite, your building, good working order. Besides that, we will follow up on if you're a first home buyer, how your first homeowner's grant is going, finance approval. Then we transfer the property into your name so you have official ownership, along with adjusting all the rates and taxes and receiving information from the council to make sure that the property legally becomes yours.
And at what point do you think a buyer or a seller should be talking to a settlement agent?
Before they write the contract.
Yes.
If you contact us before you write the contract, then we can tell you the things that you need to do. Make sure your name is correct, your address is correct. Explain different tenancies, what conditions are going to go onto your contract. I know that you guys, all real estate agents do that, but I think when they hear it from 2 or 3 people, it starts to sink in.
What happens, we get some buyers, they're calling you to say the finance is approved, then they call you, say, I appoint you as the settlement agent.
Please do it earlier.
Yes.
As soon as you've written a contract, if you can pick your settlement agent and then pass it on to them, we can then start the process and make sure that you're not missing any steps.
Yeah. And can you tell us the key steps in a settlement process?
First one is with the writing of the contract, whether you're a buyer or a seller, make sure your name's correct. We have rigorous ID now that everyone has to do.
Yeah.
Less variations, less contract changes, stat decks and name changes for us, the easier it is. But people do have to remember that you're buying the property as is.
Yes.
If it's not on the contract, it's not going to be fixed.
Yeah.
That's one big thing that we do find. They go to do their final inspection and say, the shower screen's cracked. Well, if it was cracked when you put in the offer, it's not a condition, it's going to stay the same.
Yeah, yeah.
People must be mindful of
and that's why it's important, if you do speak to your settlement agent before you make an offer, you can actually advise your client on what to do before something happens, right?
Yeah.
And also, Leanne, you mentioned about, obviously we've come across this many times, the importance of your name. And again, me being Sri Lankan as well, we probably have the longest names, about 9 names with all the syllables in the alphabet.
Yes.
How important is it to get your name correct?
It is the main thing we need. So for instance, I'm Leanne Hyde. I have a middle name. If I don't put it on there, then we have to start the process of why haven't you got your name on there? You have to have it as per your identification.
Yeah.
Driver's license, passport, birth certificate, marriage certificate, all of those things need to be correct.
And again, we'll go back to the Sri Lankan, my experience. If we have 4 or 5 names, and how do we then say which names comes first? So our driver's license have got 3 names, the banks have got 4 names, something else has got another 2 names. How do we come across that?
You need to be able to identify what is true and correct. So if your first name is the first 3 and you don't have a middle name, and then the last two are your surname, on the contract, you need to underline your surname, or at least tell the real estate agent, these are my first name, and it's 1, 2, and 3, or this is my first name, my middle names, and my surnames, because it will start from your contract. Then when your mortgage broker or your bank gets it, if it's not matching, if we get it and it's not matching, then there's variations. You're going to have to prove your identity.
Yeah, and that's my next question. These days, obviously with what happened a few years ago, the ID process has gone to a next level. We're getting a lot of buyers from eastern states coming as well.
Yes.
Sometimes sellers living out of the country. So explain to us about the ID process.
So we have a couple of ways we can carry out verification of identity. If you're here, you can come into the office and bring your identification with you. There's a company now called Scantech, and there's another company called LiveSign that we can use. We send links to your mobile phone or your email, and then you upload your identification to those documents, from those documents to the phone, and do facial recognition. That then gets checked by all the authorities and comes back with a pass or a fail.
Yeah.
If it's a fail, it's normally because you've changed your name, or you've got married, or you have a middle name and we don't know about it. Then if you're overseas, they're all out of the question, and it's straight to the Australian consulate. We provide you with documentation you have to take there. They have to certify it, and you have to send that back. That all must be original. When it gets back to us and prior to settlement, we will then contact the consulate to make sure that you were the person that went to the consulate office, as there have been cases where that's not quite right.
We've had a few where in America as well, then most states don't have the Australian consulate, right? They have to catch a flight to go there, they have to book, you have to pay. So it's very important to get this stuff done on time. Another question that I get asked these days is Pexa versus paper settlement. Even I had an issue a couple of weeks ago where 7 people turned up and the settlement didn't happen, then it got taken for another 2 weeks. So
the majority of our settlements are now through Pexa, which is the property exchange, the electronic platform. We input all the information and data into there, and we'll sign off when it's true and correct, and then all the funds transfer through the Reserve Bank of Australia. There are situations where it will go back to paper. So with Pexa, you'll sign a client authorisation form, which replaces the transfer of land document. So easy done, no issues with Pexa if you get there and your signatures don't match. Things like that we used to go through. As long as we've all signed off and all the information's correct, it still has to be processed and checked by all parties, myself, the other settlement agent, the banks involved. With a physical paper settlement, we're back to the old way. Transfer of land document, meet with the other settlement agent, your bank, their bank, sit in the room, check all the documents, check all the signatures, then hand over bank checks. The reason there is still some that are physical paper settlements is mortgagee on titles. There is some executors can't go through Pexa. Majority can. It sounds weird, but if it's Jeffrey and there's the OF, you can't do it. It's just a little thing that they're working on at the moment. Related party transfers where you have to have the duty assessed, they can't go through just yet on Pexa. And foreign buyers.
Foreign buyers as well.
Foreign buyers aren't. They're all in the pipeline to come along, and hopefully one day we will be 100% electronic, just not quite there yet.
And for foreign buyers, Leanne explained about the threshold and so many people forget to get that done, right?
So you have to have your FIRB done. And from what I understand, that price has just gone up.
Has it?
For the approvals, gone up quite dramatically. You will pay your stamp duty or transfer duty, as it's now known, and then you will pay the extra duty for being a foreign buyer, which is 12%. So,
and then for again a value certain amount, I think 700 and
I think now so ATO clearance certificates. I think is what you're talking about. So for the sellers, if you are selling a property over the value of 750,000, doesn't matter whether you're an Australian resident, a foreign buyer. a foreign seller,
Yeah.
you must have the Australian clearance certificate.
Yeah.
They can take up to 28 days.
28 days.
Some will come back within 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It's just luck of the draw. We have heard a whisper that as of next year, doesn't matter what price, you'll need a clearance certificate.
Fantastic.
So just
And
another
who has
thing.
to organise that?
The seller.
The seller.
The seller has to organise it, or they can get their accountant to do it for them.
Yeah.
There's things that we don't have the information for.
Yeah.
I don't want to know your tax file number.
Yeah.
And you have to put that in, and when you last did your tax return and things like that.
Awesome. And then for our first-time buyers, what can they do to make their settlement a lot smoother?
Apply for the first homeowners grant with their bank
Yep.
or their broker. Eastern states brokers don't do it. We found that out the hard way quite a few times. So they have to apply for it themselves. The sooner they do that,
Yep.
the quicker they can be processed, because if you have filled it out wrong or missed a section, you're going to delay that grant.
Yep.
Which then you may have to pay stamp duty and apply for a refund later.
Yep. So what happens there then? We've
So-
had a few like that's happened. Yep.
So it will depend on your settlement agent.
Yep.
Some will help you apply for the refund.
Yep.
Others will just send you the refund pamphlet and go,
Yep.
you submit it online at Revenue WA, go
Yep.
for it.
Yep.
But if you do need to, there's government forms to fill out, a portal that you fill it out for. And the refund can take up to 6 to 8 weeks to come back to you. Yep.
And then with investors, we have a lot of investors in the market these days. Again, what sort of advice can you give them to make their life a lot easier with the process?
One of the things they need to do is, if they're buying in a self-managed super fund
Yes.
or in a bear trust, all of those, is they have to make sure that is correct from the get-go.
Yes.
One of the things we've had of late is we've all flicked quite a few to lawyers because people are going to get double stamp duty.
Yes.
Because they need to change the entities.
Yeah, so it's a very important point there about this double stamp duty. I had one recently as well, where the buyers, investors bought the property and then they wanted to change it to a trust.
Yep.
Again, they're related party, and if the contracts have gone out, we can't do anything about it. Yep. And the settlement agents, there's a box I think they have to tick.
Yes.
What is that called?
So when you cancel a contract, to submit it to Office of State Revenue, there is a box that says, are you entering into a new contract?
Yes.
You want to lie to them, that's your job, not
Yes.
mine.
Yeah.
But it's a massive fine, and you then have bigger complications.
Yeah. So it's very important to get that right. What you're buying, as in how you're going to structure this.
Your purchaser entity. Yep.
Yeah, and speak to your accountant in relation to that. They will actually tell you what the best structure is. We can't advise on that, but then speak to your accountant beforehand as well.
Yeah.
There's a big thing there as well. And then for the property market, Leanne, what do you see at the moment? I mean, there's a lot of talk about the real estate market. How many files do you do at the moment?
So on average, I'm settling around 35 to 40 files a month.
Yes.
Prior to COVID, it was around 15, 20.
Yes.
So it is hot and fast at the moment. One of the things we do find is people, especially people from the eastern states, they feel like they're going to miss out.
Yes.
So they're not looking at the contract.
Yeah.
They're signing, paying, and then it comes and then they will ask questions like, oh, well, is this being done?
Yes.
No, you didn't have it on the contract.
Yeah.
Or they get their building inspection back and there's maintenance items.
Yeah.
It doesn't form a structural defect.
Yes.
But they haven't read that annexure to say, whatever it is, 9.4 or whatever, this is not covered as a structural defect.
Yeah.
People are just trying to hurry to buy something.
Yeah.
That they're just not checking things
Are
properly.
you getting more contracts with first-time buyers at the moment? In the last sort of month and a half?
I've had a few,
Yeah.
and I've had a few, but they're over the first home buyer threshold. So they're not going to get any stamp duty relief or anything because it's just the value of the properties at the moment.
Yeah.
They have put those thresholds up just recently in May. But if you're over 600,000, you're not going to.
No,
you're not going to
there's
be able
nothing
to.
like that. Hopefully the government's listening and they do something about it. Look, Leanne, there's so many settlement agents at the moment. I believe you are one of the best that I've ever come across. What should they be looking at when they're looking at a settlement agent? I mean, you're in the council, you were there, you know pretty much everybody in the game.
Yes.
What should they be looking for?
someone you feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
Realistically, price isn't going to matter. Shouldn't matter. It's the biggest investment of your life.
Yeah.
If you don't feel comfortable talking to the person on the phone or feel that they're looking after your best interests, then that's not the person for you.
Yes.
Well, my belief.
Yeah.
And it goes both ways. You know, sometimes a buyer wants something or a seller wants something, and I'm just flat out, I'm not doing that. Sorry. You go choose someone else. But make sure they're knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Ask the questions. There's over 250 settlement agencies, I believe.
Yes.
Ask, are they members of the Australian Institute? Ask if they're certified practicing conveyancers. Ask what's their workload, how many people work for them. There's bigger agencies and they will have different people along the way. That might not suit you. It may suit you.
Yeah.
Some people will want DocuSign. Some people will want original paper documents. They're the sort of things you need to ask and make sure you're comfortable with the person you're dealing with.
Yeah. And they're happy as well.
Yeah. You don't want a grumpy settlement agent. We might be sometimes, but...
Which is understandable, right? You guys go through a lot. Very underrated as well. And Leanne, look, you know, our family, we always love a deal, but even my family has been coming back to you over and over and over again. That speaks volumes. Guys, Leanne Hyde, she is a wealth of knowledge from Conveyancing HQ. If you need anything, please get in touch. Leanne, thank you so much for your time.
Thank
you. We try and make it short with these interviews. We'll put all your contact details, guys. If you want to get in contact, talk to her. She's more than happy to help. Thanks, Leanne.
Thanks, Hasi.